The first time I attended my own funeral, my husband was holding my sister's hand. They thought the black veil hid what they were doing. It did not.
I stood in the back row of a small church outside Savannah, Georgia, wearing a dark coat and a wide-brimmed hat. My hair was tucked beneath a gray wig. A pair of glasses changed the shape of my face. To everyone else, I was a grieving stranger. To the two people sitting beside my empty coffin, I was supposed to be dead. My name is Evelyn Cross. I was 45 years old, and for 17 days, the newspapers had called me a missing businesswoman. My silver SUV had been found near the Savannah River. My purse was still inside. One shoe lay in the mud near the water. There was no body. That did not stop my husband, Grant, from arranging a funeral. He told reporters that hope had become cruelty. He said our family needed peace. He stood outside the church with tears shining in his eyes and described me as the love of his life. Grant had always been a convincing liar. My younger sister, Lydia, was even better. She wore the pearl earrings I had given her for her 30th birthday. Whenever someone hugged her, she pressed a hand to her chest, as if grief had stolen her breath. Then she returned to Grant's side. Their shoulders touched. Their fingers met beneath the funeral program. That small secret movement told me everything I had spent months refusing to believe. They had not only stolen my company, they had planned to steal my life together. At the front of the church stood a large photograph of me. I was smiling beside the first restaurant I had opened 15 years earlier. The brass magnolia had begun with 8 tables, a second-hand stove, and money my mother left me when she died. I worked 18-hour days. I learned payroll, purchasing, recipes, repairs, and marketing. Over time, one restaurant became 6. Then I created a company that supplied sauces and frozen meals to grocery stores across the Southeast. Cross Southern Foods was worth nearly $40 million when I disappeared. Grant had joined the company after we married. He called himself a partner, but I owned 68%. Lydia managed public relations. I gave both of them good salaries, beautiful offices, and more trust than they deserved. The minister began speaking about forgiveness. I almost laughed. 3 weeks earlier, I had been sitting in a hotel room in Charleston when I received a message from an unknown number. Dioam. Attached was a photograph of Grant standing beside my SUV at an abandoned boat ramp. Lydia was next to him. Grant held one of my shoes. I had stared at the image until my hands went numb. The secret account mentioned in the message was something I had discovered during a routine audit. Almost $2 million had moved from Cross Southern Foods into a consulting company called Blue Heron Strategy. No one on my finance team recognized the name. When I asked Grant about it, he smiled and told me I worked too hard. When I asked Lydia, she said the account probably belonged to a distributor. That night, someone entered my office and erased part of the accounting server. The next morning, Grant suggested that I take a few days alone in Charleston. He booked the hotel himself. He even packed my suitcase. I went because I needed space to think. On my second night there, I received the warning. I did not go home. Instead, I called the only person I knew Grant could not charm, retired federal investigator Naomi Price. Naomi had been my mother's closest friend. She was 63, sharp-eyed, and patient in a way that made dishonest people nervous. She drove to Charleston before sunrise. After studying the photograph and the account records, she told me not to contact the police yet. If your husband staged your car at the river, she said, wants the world to believe something happened to you. We need to know why before we tell him he failed. Naomi moved me into a cottage owned by her cousin on Tybee Island. It had no internet account in my name and no neighbors who knew me. From there, I watched my own disappearance unfold on television. Grant reported me missing. Search teams walked the riverbank. Lydia cried in front of cameras. My company announced that Grant would serve as temporary chief executive until I returned. Then, on the 7th day, the board received a document supposedly signed by me. It said that if I died or became missing for more than 7 days, my voting authority transferred to my husband. My lawyer had never seen it. My signature was nearly perfect. The minister asked everyone to bow their heads. I kept mine raised. Grant leaned toward Lydia and whispered something. She covered her mouth, pretending to cry, but I saw the smile hiding behind her fingers. Then my attorney, Samuel Ortiz, walked to the pulpit. Samuel was one of only 3 people who knew I was alive. He looked exhausted as he opened a sealed envelope. Evelyn left instructions concerning the future of her company, he said. Grant sat straighter. This was the moment he had arranged the funeral to create. If I was legally presumed dead, a special clause in my original shareholder agreement would be activated. Grant believed he would inherit my shares. Samuel read slowly. Until Evelyn's death is legally established, her shares will remain in trust. No permanent transfer may occur. Grant's jaw tightened. Lydia looked at him in alarm. Then Samuel added the sentence Naomi, and I had written 2 nights earlier. Any person attempting to obtain those shares through fraud will permanently lose all claim to them. Silence filled the church. Grant turned toward Samuel. For 1 second, the grief disappeared from his face. What remained was anger, cold, naked, and frightened. I had seen what I came to see. As the congregation rose for the final hymn, I slipped through the side door. Naomi waited in a car across the street. Well, she asked when I climbed inside. I removed the gray wig and looked back at the church. They are together, I said. And Grant expected to receive my company today. Naomi started the engine. Then we stopped guessing, she said. Now we prove it. I watched my husband carry a framed photograph of me down the church steps, while my sister followed him like a widow. They had buried an empty coffin. Before I was finished, they would wish they had buried their secrets with it. Part Twinsy. Tiachi so yun bayam wamon tiachars nami, Naomi believed every fraud had 2 stories. The first was the story criminals wanted people to see. Grant and Lydia's story was simple. I had become overwhelmed, driven to the river, and taken my own life. The second story lived in bank transfers, phone records, deleted messages, and mistakes. That was the story we began collecting. Samuel obtained a court order preventing major changes at Cross Southern Foods, while I remained missing. Grant could run daily operations, but he could not sell the company or transfer my shares. He did not know that the delay was mine. Naomi and I built our investigation in the cottage dining room. Maps covered 1 wall. Financial records covered the table. A cheap prepaid phone connected us to Samuel and to Detective Aaron Bell, a Savannah police detective Naomi trusted. Aaron knew I was alive, but he kept that information out of the official file. He reopened the search quietly as a possible financial crime and kidnapping conspiracy. The first breakthrough came from Blue Heron Strategy. The company had been created 18 months earlier in Delaware. Its listed manager was a man named Owen Vale. Naomi found no employment record, driver's license, or tax history for him. Owen Vale did not exist, but his initials, OV, appeared in an old password Lydia used in college. Our mother's name had been Olivia Vale before she married our father. Lydia had built the fake company using mother's name. That discovery hurt more than I expected. Lydia and I had been close as children. I was 7 years older. And after our father left, I became her protector. I packed her lunches, attended parent meetings, and worked weekends to help Mother pay Lydia's college tuition. When Mother became sick, I handled the bills while Lydia stayed beside her bed. After Mother died, Lydia told me I was the only family she had left. I believed her. Now she had used Mother's name to hide stolen money. Bank records showed that Blue Heron paid for a condominium in Miami, jewelry, private flights, and something called Project Ash. Project Ash received 6 payments totaling $400,000. We could not identify the recipient. 2 days after my funeral, Samuel attended a board meeting wearing a hidden recorder. Grant announced plans to sell the grocery division to Prescott National Foods. The price was $15 million below an independent valuation. One board member objected. Grant replied, "Evelyn left us with serious debts. I am trying to save what remains." That was another lie. The company was profitable. Prescott's chief acquisitions officer was Lydia's former fiancé, Thomas Keene. The pieces began fitting together. Grant and Lydia planned to steal my voting power, sell our most valuable division cheaply to Thomas, and receive secret payments through Blue Heron. After that, Grant could close the restaurants, sell the properties, and walk away with millions. But money did not explain the staged disappearance. They could have tried to remove me through the board. They could have damaged my reputation. Instead, they placed my car beside a river and created evidence of suicide. There had to be another reason. Naomi found it in my medical records. 6 months earlier, Grant had persuaded me to complete a large insurance package for estate planning. One policy was worth $8 million. I remembered signing a policy, but I believed the amount was $2 million. Grant had changed it after I signed. The beneficiary was a family trust controlled by him. The policy included an unusual condition. Payment could be made without a body, if death was legally established through strong evidence and a court order. Grant needed the funeral, the public grief, and the story of my depression because he intended to ask a judge to declare me dead. Naomi pushed the papers toward me. "Company insurance property," she said. "They expect to collect more than $30 million. I stared through the cottage window at the gray Atlantic Ocean. "I gave them everything," I said. Naomi replied, "You gave them trust. They decided it was permission." That evening, we received a call from Detective Bell. Police had arrested a man named Curtis Wren for stealing prescription medication. During questioning, Curtis offered information about my case in exchange for help. He claimed Project Ash was his job. Aaron brought him to a secure interview room and connected Naomi and me by audio. Curtis said Grant hired him to follow me, photograph me, and learn my schedule. Later, the instructions became darker. He was told to enter my office, erase accounting files, and place antidepressants in my desk. "Did you stage this SUV?" Naomi asked. Curtis hesitated. "I delivered it," he said. "The husband and the sister handled the rest." What was supposed to happen to Evelyn? "I don't know." Naomi did not speak. Curtis began breathing faster. "I swear," he said. They changed the plan. At first, I was supposed to make it look like she jumped. Then Grant said she might be at the hotel longer. He told me to wait. Wait for what? I asked before remembering that Curtis was not supposed to hear my voice. The interview room became silent. "Who was that?" Curtis whispered. Naomi looked at me, then switched off our microphone. Aaron continued questioning him. Curtis finally admitted that Grant had hired another person when I failed to return home. He knew only a nickname: the cleaner. That night, someone broke into the cottage. I woke at 2:15 to the soft sound of glass touching wood. Not breaking. Moving. Naomi was sleeping in the next room. I reached for the alarm button beside my bed, but before I pressed it, a shadow crossed beneath the door. The doorknob turned slowly. I rolled off the mattress and crawled behind a heavy dresser. The door opened. A man stepped inside wearing dark clothing and gloves. He moved directly toward the bed. Then Naomi switched on the hallway light and aimed a pistol at his back. "Do not move," she said. The man spun, knocked the lamp from her hand, and ran through the kitchen. By the time Aaron's officers arrived, he had disappeared into the dunes. He left behind a small syringe. The laboratory found enough fentanyl in it to kill 3 people. Grant had failed to make me disappear once. Now he knew I was alive, and he had sent someone to finish the job. Part Sarsaf Astar, Real Asom, after the cottage attack. Naomi moved me to a federal safe apartment in Jacksonville, Florida. I wanted to return to Savannah and confront Grant, but Naomi refused. "Anger makes you visible," she said. "Evidence makes you powerful." Detective Bell traced tire marks near the cottage to a rental car. The car had been paid for with a prepaid card, but security footage showed the driver clearly enough for facial recognition. His name was Malcolm Rusk. He had worked as a private security contractor overseas. He also had a financial connection to Thomas Keening, Lydia's former fiancé at Prescott Foods. This was larger than my husband and sister. Thomas wanted my grocery division, and he was willing to help remove me to obtain it. Aaron secured warrants for Grant's office and Blue Heron's records, but he warned us that moving too soon might only catch the people at the bottom. We needed a confession or a clear conspiracy connecting all 4 of them. So I did the one thing they would never expect. I called Lydia. I used an encrypted line and disguised my number. She answered after the second ring. "Hello." For a moment, I could not speak. Hearing my sister's voice carried me back to hospital hallways, birthday dinners, and the night Mother died with one of us holding each hand. Then I remembered the empty coffin. "You looked beautiful at my funeral," I said. Lydia stopped breathing. "Evelyn, did you choose the flowers?" "Where are you?" "Why? Do you need another shoe for the riverbank?" She began crying. The sound was so familiar that part of me wanted to comfort her. "You don't understand," she said. "Grant told me you were going to destroy everything." What did I destroy? Mother. That word struck harder than any accusation I expected. Lydia claimed she had discovered medical bills showing that I stopped paying for an experimental treatment during Mother's final illness. She said, "Mother might have lived, but I chose to protect the company instead." "Grant showed me the records," she said. "It showed me the email where you said the treatment was a bad investment." I felt sick. No such email existed. The treatment had been unavailable to Mother because her cancer had spread too far. I had paid every bill, including debts Lydia never knew about. Grant had created false records and used our deepest wound to turn my sister against me. But Lydia had still made choices. "Did false records make you hold my shoe at the river?" I asked. She became quiet. "Grant said you would be safe," she whispered. "He said you would stay in Charleston while we forced you out of the company. He promised no one would hurt you. And when you learned about the insurance." She did not answer. "Did you know he hired Malcolm Rusk?" The line went dead. Naomi had recorded everything. The call gave us proof of fraud and the staged disappearance, but Lydia stopped before admitting knowledge of the murder plan. Worse, we had revealed that I was alive. Within an hour, Grant emptied 2 accounts and booked a private plane to the Bahamas. Thomas scheduled the Prescott sale for the following evening, hours before the plane's departure. They were preparing to take the company and run. Samuel could delay the sale through court, but I no longer wanted a delay. I wanted them all in one room, speaking freely. We gave them a reason to gather. Samuel informed Grant that a judge had agreed to review the petition declaring me legally dead. A private hearing would occur in 10 days. If the evidence appeared convincing, the insurance claim and share transfer might proceed. Grant canceled his flight. Greed kept him exactly where we needed him. Then Naomi sent Malcolm a message, pretending to come from Thomas. It ordered him to meet at Grant's River house to receive his remaining payment. Aaron placed the property under surveillance. The River house had belonged to my mother. Lydia and I spent summers there as girls. Grant rarely used it, but Blue Heron's records showed recent purchases of cameras, locks, plastic floor covering, and industrial cleaning supplies delivered to that address. 2 nights later, Lydia, Thomas, and Malcolm arrived separately. Through a microphone hidden in the air conditioning system, we listened from a surveillance van half a mile away. Grant accused Malcolm of failing at the cottage. Malcolm demanded double payment. Thomas wanted the sale completed before anyone took another risk. Then Lydia said something that changed the case. "No one was supposed to die," she said. "You told me Evelyn would be drugged and kept here until the documents were signed." Grant laughed. "And then what, Lydia? We release her so she can call the police." "You promised me?" "I promised you your sister's company." Lydia began to cry. Thomas told Grant to control her. Malcolm said, "If the woman comes back, all of you go to prison. There is only one solution." Grant answered, "Then make sure there is a body this time." We had the murder conspiracy recorded. Aaron prepared his team to enter, but Naomi raised a hand. "Wait," she said. Inside the house, Lydia asked about the false medical records concerning Mother. Grant did not deny creating them. "You needed a reason to hate Evelyn," he said. "I gave you one." Lydia made a sound I will never forget. It was not quite a sob. It was the sound of a person realizing that the story supporting every terrible decision had collapsed. Then a chair scraped across the floor. Lydia said, "I'm leaving." Grant told her she knew too much. The microphone transmitted a struggle, a crash, and Lydia screaming. Aaron ordered the officers forward. Before they reached the property, 2 gunshots came through the speakers. I opened the van door. Naomi grabbed my arm, but I pulled free and ran toward the River house. I had spent weeks planning revenge against my sister. Now I did not know whether she was alive. Part 40. T.D. Ener Far, Adid Wom Am. Police surrounded the River house within minutes. Thomas and Malcolm were arrested near the dock. Grant escaped through a drainage tunnel that opened beyond the property. Lydia was found in the kitchen with a bullet wound in her shoulder. The second shot had struck the wall. When paramedics carried her outside, her face was pale and wet with tears. She saw me standing behind the police line. "Evie," she whispered. She had not called me that since we were children. I wanted to hate her. Part of me still did. But as she reached toward me, I took her hand. "Tell them everything," I said. Lydia nodded before the ambulance doors closed. Grant remained missing for 2 days. Then he contacted Samuel with an offer. He claimed Thomas and Malcolm had forced him into the plot. In exchange for immunity, he would testify against them and help recover company money. He did not know we had the River house recording. Samuel pretended to negotiate. Grant agreed to meet at the ballroom of the Bellwether Hotel, where Cross Southern Foods was scheduled to hold its annual Founders' Dinner. The event had originally been planned as a celebration of my company's 15th anniversary. After my disappearance, Grant changed it into a memorial and announced himself as the new permanent chief executive. He planned to appear before employees, investors, and reporters while police were searching for him. His confidence seemed insane until Naomi explained it. "He thinks public visibility protects him," she said. "He believes arresting a grieving husband in front of cameras will look like persecution." Grant also believed Samuel would bring documents, transferring my shares in exchange for his cooperation. We decided to let him have his stage. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and white flowers. A portrait of me stood beside the platform. More than 300 guests filled the room. I waited in a service corridor, wearing a red dress my mother had bought me when I opened the first brass magnolia. Naomi stood beside me. Detective Bell and federal agents were positioned at every exit. Onstage, Grant spoke about my vision. Evelyn taught us that a legacy is larger than one life, he said. Tonight, I promised to carry her dream forward. Applause rose around the room. Behind him, a screen displayed photographs of us together. Our wedding, vacations, restaurant openings. Grant had turned our marriage into evidence of his innocence. Samuel approached the stage holding a blue folder. Grant smiled. Before the final announcement, Samuel said, "We have prepared a short message from our founder." The lights dimmed. Instead of a memorial video, the screen showed Grant at the River House. His recorded voice filled the ballroom. "I promised you your sister's company." Guests stopped eating. The video continued. Thomas discussed the discounted sale. Malcolm demanded payment. Lydia accused Grant of lying about Mother's treatment. Then everyone heard Grant give the order. "Make sure there is a body this time." Grant lunged toward the control booth, but Aaron stepped from the crowd. "Stay where you are." Grant looked toward the exits and saw federal agents waiting. His public mask finally broke. "This is fabricated," he shouted. "Evelyn's sister created this because she wants the company." I walked onto the stage. For several seconds, no one moved. A woman near the front screamed. Someone dropped a glass. Camera flashes began exploding across the room. Grant stared at me as if the dead had truly returned. "Hello, Grant," I said. He stepped backward. "You can't be here." That is the problem with holding a funeral without a body. Reporters crowded toward the stage. I turned to the audience and told them the truth in the simplest words I could find. I explained the stolen money, the forged authority document, the insurance policy, the staged SUV, and the attack at the cottage. I told my employees that the company was stable and the Prescott sale had been blocked. Then Samuel opened the blue folder. It did not contain a share transfer. It contained court orders freezing Grant's property and restoring my full control of Cross Southern Foods. Grant moved close enough that only I could hear him. "You think you won?" he said. "Lydia helped me. If I fall, she falls too. Your family name will be destroyed." "My family name survived my funeral," I replied. "It will survive your trial." He reached for my arm. Aaron caught him before he touched me and pulled his hands behind his back. As the handcuffs closed, Grant looked at the enormous photograph beside the stage. In it, I was younger, hopeful, and still unaware of him. "I made you," he shouted while officers led him away. I picked up the microphone. "No," I said. "You mistook standing beside me for building what I built." The entire ballroom heard me. Grant had planned a dinner where he would inherit the future of a dead woman. Instead, he left through the kitchen in handcuffs while that woman reclaimed her name before the whole city. Part 5D. I chose to. Borwai Grant's trial began 7 months later. By then, Thomas Keene had pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy. Malcolm Rusk faced attempted murder charges for the cottage attack and the shooting at the River House. Curtis Wren testified about staging my SUV and planting medication in my office. Lydia became the prosecution's most important witness. She admitted creating Blue Heron, stealing company money, forging my signature, and helping stage my disappearance. She also explained how Grant manipulated her with false records about Mother's death. The lie did not excuse her crimes, and she did not ask it to. "I wanted to believe Evelyn had betrayed us," she told the jury. because jealousy was easier to admit when I called it justice. I sat behind the prosecutors and listened. For years, Lydia had watched me receive praise while feeling invisible. Grant found that hidden resentment and fed it until it became hatred. But he had not created it. Lydia understood that now. She received 6 years in prison under a cooperation agreement. Thomas received 9. Malcolm received 28. Grant was convicted of attempted murder, conspiracy, insurance fraud, wire fraud, forgery, and theft. The judge sentenced him to 41 years. Before sentencing, Grant asked to speak. He turned toward me. "Evelyn always needed to control everything," he said. "This entire performance proves it. She could have come home. Instead, she hid and trapped us." Oh, for one dangerous second, his words made me question myself. Then the judge answered for me. "Mrs. Cross did not create your choices," she said. "She survived them." After court, I drove alone to the cemetery where Mother's ashes were buried. Lydia and I had chosen a magnolia tree instead of a stone. I sat beneath its branches and read the real medical letters aloud, though Mother no longer needed the truth. I told her I was angry with Lydia. I told her I still loved Lydia. Both things were true. Cross Southern Foods recovered most of the stolen money through seized accounts and insurance claims. I canceled the Prescott sale and removed every director who had ignored warning signs because Grant made success look effortless. I also made changes of my own. Employees received shares. Financial decisions required independent review. We created a fund for families of missing persons and for women facing financial abuse. The first brass magnolia remained open. I kept the scratched wooden table where Mother had helped me calculate prices on opening night. 1 year after the funeral, I returned to the same church. This time, there was no coffin. I had asked a small group of employees, friends, and family to meet me there. Naomi sat in the front row. Samuel sat beside her. Detective Bell stood near the back, uncomfortable in a suit. On the altar, I placed the photograph Grant had used at my funeral. I told everyone we were not there to mourn the woman in the picture. We were there to say goodbye to the woman who believed love required endless trust. "I used to think betrayal changed who I was," I said. "It did not. It showed me where I had abandoned myself." Afterward, I carried the photograph outside. I removed it from its heavy memorial frame and kept the picture. The frame went into a donation box. I did not need to destroy every memory to reclaim my life. Lydia wrote to me from prison every month. For a long time, I did not answer. Her letters contained no excuses. She described counseling, kitchen work, and the women she met who had also confused manipulation with love. In her 12th letter, she wrote one sentence that stayed with me. "I helped them erase you because I had spent years believing there was not enough room in the world for both of us." I answered that letter. I did not promise forgiveness. I told her forgiveness was not a door she could demand I open. But I promised that when she left prison, if she was willing to live honestly, we could meet as 2 women instead of 2 wounded daughters fighting over Mother's love. 3 years later, I visited her. We sat across from each other beneath fluorescent lights. She looked older and smaller. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then Lydia placed Mother's pearl earrings on the table. "These were never mine," she said. I pushed them back. "Mother left them to both of us." Lydia began crying. I did not reach across the table immediately. Healing was not forgetting. It was not pretending the river. The coffin and the gunshots had never happened. Healing was choosing what those things would mean next. Finally, I placed my hand over hers. Grant sent me letters too. I returned every one unopened. He had taken enough of my time. On the 5th anniversary of my company's founding dinner, I stood on the rooftop of our Savannah headquarters. Below me, the river moved through the city, dark and shining beneath the evening lights. For years, I could not look at that water without seeing my abandoned SUV and the single shoe in the mud. That night, I saw something different. I saw movement. The river did not apologize for carrying away what people threw into it. It simply continued toward the ocean. Naomi joined me and asked what I was thinking. I thought revenge would be watching Grant lose everything, I said. Wasn't it? I shook my head. Seeing him sentenced had given me justice. But it had not returned the years I spent trusting him. His suffering could not rebuild me. Only my own choices could do that. My real revenge was the company still standing. It was employees becoming owners. It was Lydia facing the truth. It was my name belonging to me again. Most of all, it was waking each morning without needing Grant to regret what he had done. He and Lydia had held a funeral to erase me. They filled a church with flowers, lowered an empty coffin, and expected the world to accept that I was gone. But the woman they buried was only the woman who trusted them blindly. I was still alive. And from that day forward, I never again confused being loved with being safe, being forgiving with being weak, or being betrayed with being defeated. My family held my funeral while I was still alive. So I let them bury the woman I used to be. And I walked away as the woman they could never destroy.